Last month, my energy bill was £15 higher than expected, and I found out exactly why in 10 seconds flat without opening a single utility app. By the end of this walkthrough, you will have a unified daily cost sensor that combines your DCC electricity and gas data in real time, triggers immediate alerts when your usage spikes unexpectedly, and integrates seamlessly with your existing presence and climate automations to stop energy waste before it happens. Most energy monitoring setups in Home Assistant are fundamentally fragmented. You might have your smart plugs reporting back, and maybe you have managed to pull in some smart meter data, but it usually sits there as a disconnected graph. It is purely historical. It tells you what you spent yesterday, or what you used last week, but it doesn't help you make decisions right now. The standard approach relies on you checking a dashboard manually. But a smart home shouldn't require you to check a dashboard, it should tell you when something is wrong. If your heating kicks on in the middle of a summer afternoon, or if a device gets stuck in a power-hungry state, you won't know until the bill arrives 3 weeks later. That is the gap we are closing today. Here is how we fix it using the live data from my system. I am in the UK, utilizing the DCC network via a Hildebrand Glow stick. This feeds raw data directly into Home Assistant, giving us two separate entities, one for electricity and one for gas. On their own, they are useful, but they are difficult to read at a glance. We need to combine them into a single metric, pounds and pence. To do this, we are not going to use the UI helpers. We are going to write a template sensor directly in our YAML configuration because it gives us more control over the calculation and the state updates. Open your configuration file and add this specific sensor block. What we are doing here is defining a template sensor called daily_cost. The value template looks at two specific entities, sensor.dcc_sourced_smart_electricity_meter_cost_today and sensor.dcc_sourced_smart_gas_meter_cost_today. We are taking the state of both, converting them to floats, adding them together, and assigning the unit of measurement as GBP. This single line of logic transforms two separate streams of meter data into one actionable financial figure. This is the source of truth for your house. Now that we have the data, we need to make it intelligent. Just knowing the cost isn't enough, we need context. We need to know when that cost is rising faster than it should. I have set up an automation that monitors this daily_cost entity against a specific threshold. But we do not want it to nag us constantly. We need to filter it based on what is actually happening in the house. This is where my presence tracking comes into play. I use device_tracker.phone_1 and device_tracker.phone_2, combined with Tailscale VPN tracking, to know exactly who is home. If nobody is home, and the daily_cost starts climbing rapidly, that is a critical alert. Let me walk you through the logic. I have a trigger based on the numeric state of the daily_cost sensor. If it rises by a certain percentage within a 1-hour window, the automation fires. However, the condition checks my input_boolean.away_mode. If away_mode is off, meaning I am home and cooking dinner or running the washing machine, the automation suppresses the notification. It knows their high usage is expected. But if away_mode is on, and the cost spikes, it checks the climate systems. Is switch.heater currently on? Did automation.heater_evening_on fire by mistake? If the heater is not supposed to be running, the system knows there is a problem. We also need to handle the output gracefully. If you have 6 Alexa devices like I do, you do not want every single one shouting at you about the electricity bill. I target the announcement to a specific media_player entity using the Alexa_media_player integration, but I ensure input_boolean.do_not_disturb is not active. If I have manually enabled do not disturb, perhaps because I am working or sleeping, the visual alert takes priority over the audio one. The script sends the cost data to the Ortrix 3 Ultra display in the hallway. I can even adjust the input_number.ortrix_brightness to pulse the screen, catching my eye without making a sound. This creates a layered approach to notifications that respects the context of the home. We can also tie this into our routines. In my good_morning_routine, the system checks the overnight energy consumption. If the daily cost at 7 a.m. is higher than the baseline set by sensor.dcc_sourced_smart_electricity_meter_cost_today from the previous week, Alexa will announce a brief summary. It might say, overnight usage was slightly higher than normal. This prompts me to check if I left something on, like the immersion heater or the tumble dryer. It turns the data into a habit-forming check. Furthermore, this data drives the heating logic. My automation.heater_evening_on usually triggers based on time and sunset, but now it has a failsafe. If the daily cost is already tracking high for the day, perhaps because the oven was on for hours, the system might delay turning on the switch.heater by 30 minutes or lower the target temperature to save money. It calculates that we have already hit a certain spending tier and acts to mitigate it. This is the difference between monitoring and managing. Here is what it looks like in practice. I walk out the door in the morning, device_tracker.phone_1 leaves the home zone, and my arrives_home automation switches the house to away_mode. Hours later, my tumble dryer finishes its cycle, but the heating element sticks on. My daily cost sensor, which is fed by that live DCC data, starts ticking up faster than normal for an empty house. The automation triggers. Since away_mode is active, it bypasses the check that would normally allow for high usage. It sees switch.heater is on. It immediately sends a TTS notification to my phone via the mobile app and updates the Ortrix 3 Ultra to flash red. I get the alert, pull up Home Assistant, and manually toggle the switch off, preventing hours of wasted electricity. Alternatively, I come home in the evening. As I enter the nursery or the living room, the welcome_home automation runs. One of the first things it does is announce the day's running total through the Echo Dot in the kitchen. You have spent £3.40 on energy so far today. That immediate feedback helps me decide whether to put the heating on high or just throw on a jumper. You have now built a financial feedback loop for your smart home.